All right, first and foremost, I want to give call, Allah, Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai. All praises to the Most High God in the name of His only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. It's your brother, Taz upon you, by Yahweh, to come back at you through the Spirit and power, Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai, with another edifying video. As you can see on your screen, I was searching the web a couple of weeks, well, not a couple of weeks, Salaki, a couple of days, a couple of days ago, after watching another installment, a beautiful series that the chief priest put together called Viva Yasharala, going into basically giving you valuable information and vital information to be able to prove that the Northern Kingdom, your modern day Native American and Latinos are indeed Israelites, you know. So I was searching the web, after watching part 5 of Viva Yasharala on the Sakari main page. You need to go check that out. If you haven't seen him, he has about 5 parts, and I think the 6th part will be coming out next week. So tune in Monday for that on the Sakari main page. Just get on YouTube, type in Sakari, and it'll pop up. But anyway, without further ado, we're gonna go ahead and get into this article. Then I'm gonna hit a couple of scriptures and a couple of key points. So just further substantiating that the so-called Mexican man, woman, and child are indeed Israelites, and this has been documented not only from the time of since 1969, when you had Abba Bivens teaching people like Elder Ariah and the 7, right, and the rest of the 7, right, but historians, mostly a lot of crackers, have been pushing the fact that Native Americans and Latinos are indeed Israelites, descendants of Israelites, right? So we're going to go ahead without further ado, get into this article, and then I'm going to, skim through a couple of scriptures, just to bring some things forth and substantiate them, and then we're going to close out. So without further ado, this is Stories of Emancipation, Aztecs, and Israelites. Growing up as a Jew in Mexico exposed me to 2 narratives of brutal oppression and peoplehood by Alan Grabinski. Okay? Every Monday morning in elementary school in Mexico City, I would line up next to my classmates in the main yard. As we looked up the red, white, and green flag, we would sing a hymn of the Mexican flag with our hands on our chests. The ritual was, and still is, repeated across Mexico. Atop the flag is a ubiquitous Mexican emblem, an image of an eagle standing on top of a cactus, devouring a snake. The story behind this image is known to everyone in Mexico, but to me, as a Mexican Jew, the symbol has taken on added meaning with time, especially around Passover. Interesting. Let me just read down a little bit. All right. The Mexicas, later called the Aztecs by the Spaniards, escaped oppression from their tyrannical rulers called the Azteca Chicomatztoca in northern Mexico. Hopefully I didn't butcher that, because they heeded a calling from Huitzilopochtli, a Mesoamerican deity who promised them a glorious and powerful empire if they left the region. Their priests led them out, and after roaming around the central Mexican valley for 150 years, they finally found the sign, an eagle eating the snake on top of a cactus. That would show them where to build their future capital, Tenochtitlan. I think that's how you say that. I'm not a good Spanish speaker, so Northern Kingdom, please forgive me. Salakia in advance. All right. But anyway, thus laying the foundations of what is now Mexico City. All right. So let me just scroll down. All right. The parallel between the liberation of the children of Israel and the Aztecs, both whom were oppressed, become obvious as I grew up. it was not only the tales of a people wandering that drew me in, but the fact that both stories end in massive violence, reflecting the trauma that historically and religiously comes with establishing sovereignty. Joshua enters the land of Israel triumphantly after the slave generation, and thousands of idolatrous Jews are left behind to die in the desert. Let me scroll down a little bit more. The Aztecs gained power after working for decades as mercenary warriors for the nearby Tepanicas, whom they later subverted mercilessly. Okay, let me go down a little bit more. Yet it was only recent in an article by Mexican Jewish historian Enrique Caruze that it dawned on me that these two stories actually collide in a sense into one. According to Caruze, writing in the prestigious magazine Letras Libres in 2010, the story of the Israelites and the Aztecs were so familiar that the Spanish priest Diego Duran, one of the first chroniclers of the New World, and according to some historians, a crypto Jew himself, went so far to assert, based on what he heard from Aztecs, that they were descendants from Jews. Okay? Now, when that says Jews, what it really should say, the proper term to use is just Israelites, right? Because we didn't start off with this whole Northern Kingdom, Southern Kingdom thing. That happened after the time the kingdom had split under King Solomon, okay? But when Moses was on the scene, you know, and he gave the law to the 12 tribes, we was just the nation of Israel. That was it, you know? So, but nonetheless, you know, this is substantiating that even historians years ago, you know, before any camp got out on a street corner and taught this to any blacks, Latins, and Native Americans, the historians were already compiling the information, man. All right. Let's see. So let's look up Diego Duran, right? Let's just see who he was. Let me just go to this. Salakia, if my computer is a little slow, you know, it lags sometimes, so just bear with me. All right, here we go. Let me just, you know, you can find this on Wikipedia. It's common knowledge. You know, I suggest y'all look these things up for yourself. But let me scoot this back a little bit so y'all can see the whole screen. All right, Diego Duran, 1537 through 1588, was a Dominican friar, best known for his authorship of one of the earliest Western books on the history and culture of the Aztecs. See, and that's one thing when you start to do history that you're going to find out. A lot of these crackers, right, they're very intrigued about following Israelite culture, following Israelites. You know, they did the same thing to the natives. You know, you have books upon books upon books, historical books that chronicle, you know, basically crackers, you know, being trusted by some of our native and Latin brothers, you know, to the point where they would let them, you know, study their languages, study their customs, you know, so on and so forth. You know, you know, Esau is just, what do I want to call it? He's just infatuated with Israelite culture, man. Okay. But anyway, Dominican friar, best known for his authorship of one of the earliest Western books on the history and culture of the Aztecs, The History of the Indies of New Spain, a book that was much criticized in his lifetime for helping the heathen maintain their culture. See, when it says heathen right there, it's referring to the Aztecs. All right. So these damn devils, you know, looked at us as heathen, but they had a reason for it, and it's actually spiritual. We're going to go into the Bible and go into a couple of verses that actually refer to Israelites as heathen Why? Because we took on ways of heathen. Okay, this is how the Israelites, the Northern Kingdom had ended up in America any damn way. Just how the Northern and Southern Kingdom ended up in slavery in the Americas, North, Central, and South any damn way. Why? Because we started practicing heathenism. All right, we started doing the things that we started doing the things that we saw. It's basically learned behavior by being around the heathens that we were scattered around, right? So let me get this second Esdras. Let me get this in second Esdras, right? This is second Esdras chapter 2, verse 33. I, Esdras, received a charge of the Lord upon the Mount Oreb, that I should go unto Israel. But when I came unto them, they set me at naught, and despised the commandment of the Lord. Right? Verse 34. And therefore I say unto you, O ye heathen, right? O ye heathen that hear and understand, look for your shepherd. He shall give you everlasting rest, for he is nigh. That means near, at hand. That shall come in the end of the world. So, of course, that's talking about the Messiah, Yahushua, who was also rejected when he was on the scene by his own people. What does the Bible say, roughly paraphrasing? He went to his own, and his own basically accepted him not. The stone that the builders refused. Well, they did the same thing to the prophets, man. Back in the day, just like Israel does now. When we go out here on these street corners week in and week out to preach this word, man, a lot of our people don't want to hear it. It's a lot of these damn Gentiles that accept the fact that they're going into slavery and that they're the damn devil and everything under the sun that we say, but our own people, it's kind of more hard for them to accept the truth than it is some damn cracker, man. On certain occasions, So, this is basically just a scripture that you can go to prove that, Israelites are called heathens, okay, in certain contexts, right? In second Esdras, chapter 2, verse 33 through 34 is one of them, Let's get another scripture. Boom. All right. Let's go up. This is Ezekiel chapter 20, verse 31. For when ye offer your gifts, when ye make your sons to pass through the fire, ye pollute yourselves with all your idols, even unto this day. And shall I be inquired of by you, O house of Israel? As I live, saith the Lord God, I will not be inquired of you. Verse 32. And that which cometh into your mind shall not be at all, that ye say, we will be as the heathen, as the families of the countries, to serve wood and stone, right? So basically, as you can see in the first verse, it said that Israelites were sacrificing their kids unto idols. That is a heathenistic custom, right? Human sacrifice. We know that the Most High doesn't condone human sacrifice. This is something that we picked up from the heathen. All right. Matter of fact, let me just go to this right now. Let's just get this right now, because when we came over to the Americas, when the Aztecs came over to the Americas, who also followed them over to the Americas? You had the Olmecs, who are the Hamites, all right, which are heathens. Now let's read this. The Aztecs were not the first civilization in Mesoamerica to practice human sacrifice, as probably it was the Olmec civilization, which first began such rituals atop their sacred pyramids. Other civilizations such as Maya, Toltecs continued the practice, right? So, as scripture substantiates, we learned a lot of this stuff from the heathen, who are the Olmecs. They're Hamites. They're heathen, man. All right? So, let's read this. Hosea 8 and 13. They sacrifice flesh for the sacrifices of mine offerings, and eat it. But the Lord accepted them not. Now will he remember their iniquity and visit their sins. They shall return to Egypt, right? You shall return into slavery. You shall return into bondage. Verse 14. Or being in a tight space, a rock in a hard place, right? Verse 14. For Israel hath forgotten his maker. We forgot the Most High. And buildeth temples. And Judah hath multiplied fenced cities. But I will send a fire upon his cities, and it shall devour the places thereof. You know, so basically it's a cause and effect thing, man. We turn away from the Most High. The Most High puts us in slavery, man. All right. And in the midst of us going into slavery, you know, being under subjection to all of these different kingdoms of heathen, we end up exhibiting learned behavior, right? We start living how they live, doing what they do, you know. So, you know, the custom of human sacrifice, you know, the Aztecs and the Mayans were heavy into that. Matter of fact, let me just show you a couple of images of it. See, stuff like this. Here goes a graphic one. See that? Human sacrifice at a temple, you know, blood. There goes a fellow Native American or Latino man, Aztec man, or Mayan man. Because the Aztecs and the Mayans, you know, they did this type of stuff together. You know, they've always been running buddies. You know, their land, even back in Israel, was like right next to each other. You know, and even their land in the Americas is also next to each other. Okay? So all you need to do is just look up Mayan and Aztec human sacrifice. And this is well documented throughout their history. You know, you can find this with no problem. Let me go back. Okay, Deuteronomy 33:1, right? And this is the blessing wherewith Moses, the man of God, blessed the children of Israel before his death. Verse 30, Deuteronomy 33:18. And Zebulun, he said, rejoice, which is the Mayans, right? And Zebulun, he said, rejoice, Zebulun, and thy going out. And Issachar, who was the modern day Mexican, in thy tents. Verse 19, they shall call the people unto the mountain. There they shall offer sacrifices of righteousness, for they shall suck of the abundance of the seas and of the treasures hid in the sand. You know, and when you go into Mexico or Guatemala and Panama, where a lot of those riches, you know, and resources, where do they come from? Either from either from the sea, or you know, or from the soil, man. You know, or from the soil that land sits on. Okay, but when it comes down to Zebulun and Issachar sacrificing, they wasn't really doing what they were supposed to be doing when they came to the Americas. You know, they left slavery. You know, 2nd Ezra 13 talks about how they escaped slavery to come over to the Americas, a place called ISRAELITE, right? And if you look up in the Britannica, it'll tell you that, well, not the Britannica, the Jewish Encyclopedia, Salakia, it'll tell you that ISRAELITE is just another earlier word for Americas, right? But when they got over here, you know, it was certain customs that they kept, you know, like fringes and eating unleavened bread and stuff like that. But also, it was a lot of things that they acquired and started to do that was learned behavior from the heathen. Human sacrifices being one of them, right? So let me read this in Psalms 106, right? This Psalms 106 and 34. They did not destroy the nations concerning whom Yahweh commanded them, verse 35, but were mingled among the heathen and learned their works. You see, Yahweh told us to kill these people. We didn't kill them. So what ended up happening? We ended up learning their behavior, exhibiting, you know, their customs, you know, verse 36, and they served their idols, which were a snare unto them. What does a snare mean? A trap. Verse 37, yea, they sacrificed their sons and their daughters unto devils. Verse 38, and shed innocent blood, right? Even the blood of their sons and of their daughters, whom they sacrificed unto the idols of Canaan. Okay, who is Canaan? The Hamites, man. All right, Canaanites. And the land was polluted with blood. So, let's just go back to this. What do you see here? What's happening right here? Is this not human sacrifice? Is this not what's being depicted? You know, that what we just read in Psalms 106. You know, history flows cohesively with the Bible, man. All right, but let's get back to this, man. This cracker Diego Duran, right? So, all right. Let me scroll down a little bit. All right. Also known as the Duran Codex, the history of the Indies of New Spain was completed in about 1581. Duran also wrote a book of the gods and rites in 1574 through 1576, an ancient calendar 1579. He was fluent in Nahuatl, which is the language that the Aztecs spoke before the colonizers came and colonized America. All right, Columbus and the rest of the rape robbers and murderers, the conquistador, right? Okay, the Aztec language was therefore able to consult natives and Aztec codices, as well as work done by earlier friars. His empathetic nature allowed him to gain the confidence of many native people whom would not share their stories with Europeans, and was able to document many previously unknown folktales and legends that make his work unique. So now with the American flag, with the Mexican flag, I just want to point this out. Normally you'll see an eagle, right? An eagle. Depicted right here. This doesn't, the bird that you see right there with the snake in its mouth, it doesn't really look like too much of a eagle, but it still does look like a bird of prey. I want to look that bird up because I don't even think that bird actually looks like how they're depicting it. But anyway, I'll save that for another time. All right. Okay, let me go up a little bit. All right. Early life. Duran was born sometime around 1537 in Spain. His family traveled to Mexico when he was very young. He said later that although I did not acquire my milk teeth in Texcoco, I got my second ones there in Texcoco, a city-state known for its learning and in the pre-Hispanic period, Salakia. He learned Nahuatl. His family was not wealthy, but the family did have servants who had been slaves. All right. When he was still young, his family moved to Mexico City, where he attended school and was exposed to Aztec culture under the colonial rule of Spain, as well as the many Africans brought by the Spanish for slavery. According to Hayden, Duran was often puzzled by the mix of races and cultures and their significance for social class, when really there was no mix. You know, the so-called Africans are the Southern Kingdom, and the so-called Latin tribes are the Northern Kingdom. All right? These are the same people. Okay? Oppressed together, like the book of Jeremiah says, right? I think that's Jeremiah 50 and 33. Oppressed together in the land of the North, which is talking about the Americas. But anyway, life in the church, right? In 1556, he entered the Dominican order and was sent to Oaxaca, which is, I think, it's a city in Mexico, if I'm not mistaken. In 1561, after being trained in Mexico City, he resided for a time at a convent or friary in Oaxtepec, and there he found many informants within the church. He is believed to have been tortured by Dominican Fray Francisco de Aguilar, who had once been a soldier involved in the siege of Tenochtitlan. I just butchered the hell out of that word. Aguilar later Aguilar later joined the Dominican order and had much to tell Duran about the Aztecs at first contact. He was cited frequently by Duran in history. All right. Duran later became a vicar at a convent in Huiyapan. It was there that he learned the most from the native Nahuas. The convents had been issued by a decree by I think that's the fifth, Charles V, to preach the Christian word to native rural villages, and Duran ventured into the villages frequently to converse with the natives there. The clergy were to also observe native customs and to search for ancient documents, particularly the lost holy scriptures of St. Thomas, who was believed to have been the basis for the Aztecs' Quetzalcoatl, right? And Quetzalcoatl is the messianic figure, Yahweh Shai, as the Aztecs knew him, all right? He developed a close association with the people he was attempting to convert, which led him to criticize the clerics and conquistadors who never learned the natives' language, writing they should know the language well and understand the people if they have any pretense of obtaining fruit. And the clergy should not acquiesce by saying they need know only enough of the tongue in order to hear confession, and that is enough. Book of the Gods and Rights, and scorns the Spaniards' crude use of the language that made the natives scoff. Duran was torn between two worlds, his own people and the Aztecs. Notice devil wasn't, Esau don't care about no Israelites, all right? So what, we supposed to actually sit up and believe that this one damn devil actually cared enough about the Aztecs and the Mayans, man, that he was encountering? Get the hell out of here, man. All right. On one hand, he respected the Aztecs and their governmental organization before the conquest, and he grew to admire the native people of Mexico, and often said so. On the other hand, he was repulsed by certain acts of his native informants, particularly human sacrifice. All right. It was, after all, his duty to evangelize them, right? Evangelize them with white Jesus, right? Them and his Catholic background gave him a great disdain for such things. Another of his duties was to document the cultural ways and practices of the native people, to serve as a manual for the other monks in their attempt to evangelize them. Basically, take them away from their customs, take them away from, who they were pre-colonization, man. All right. Although they wasn't doing a lot of the things that they should have been doing, it was certain customs, that they were keeping, and I'm pretty sure that some of them still basically knew that they was Israel, man, for a certain time period, before it was beat and beat out of them, just like it was beat out of the Southern Kingdom. All right. Although his purpose was to detail the heathen practices as a manual for other missionaries, he also wanted to make it pleasant to read and useful to others. In 1585, Salakia, Fray Diego returned to Mexico City in ill health to live and work in convent of St. Dominic. There is a translator from the Nahuatl to Spanish for the Inquisition. He died in 1588 of an unknown illness. All right. But yeah. Historical works of influence. The history of the Indies of New Spain, sometimes referred to as the Duran Codex, contains 78 chapters spanning from the Aztec creation story until after Spanish conquest of Mexico, and includes a chronology of Aztec kings. The phrase of the 16th century borrowed one another's material without citation. Some scholars believe that the Duran Codex formed the basis for the Ramirez Codex, although others believe that the Ramirez Codex and the Duran Codex relied on an earlier unknown work referred to as Chronicle X. In 1596, Duran was cited as a source by Fray Augustin de Villa Padilla in his Historia de la Fundición. Yeah, I'm not reading the rest of that because I don't know what the hell it says. I'm not even gonna lie to y'all. The Duran Codex was unpublished until the 19th century, when it was found in the library of Marid Jose Fernando Ramirez. In this ancient calendar, Duran explains his work would go so long without being published by saying some persons, and they are not a few, say that my work will revive ancient customs and rites among the Indians. To which he replied that the Indians were quite good at secretly preserving their own customs and needed no outside help. Okay, but I just read that to go into who actually Diego Duran was, so we can get an understanding, right? So let's go back to the article. Hopefully I can remember where I was and we don't read anything that, basically I already read. All right. So we're going to start back here. Okay. I see. Boom. Like many chroniclers, Duran thought that the Exodus was a historical fact and that the indigenous people of the Americas were connected to the biblical tribes. Let me read that again. Like many chroniclers, Duran thought that the Exodus was a historical fact and that the indigenous people of the Americas were connected to the biblical tribes. What is that saying, man? These crackers knew that the 12 tribes of Israel were in the Americas, man. All right? But when we're speaking about the Northern Kingdom, they knew that the 10 tribes had came from over there in the Middle East and traveled over here to the Americas. Okay, like it says in 2nd Ezra 13th chapter, starting at, I think, verse 39, through like 45, somewhere down there, This is not a symbolic interpretation. Duran really believes, or seems to believe, that the Aztecs had Hebrew lineage, writes Caruze. Okay? And it wasn't just Duran, it's other historians as well, man. All right? Other chroniclers, okay, that came before him also thought the same thing. Okay? Why is that? Because it's the truth, man. All right? The story of the Aztecs' exodus was the ultimate proof and on a common background. In his most famous book, The History of the Indias of New Spain, Duran goes so far as to state dubiously that the indigenous tale of expulsion also included a scene of parting waters, just like Moses in the Red Sea, right? Okay. In fact, he is so keen on drawing connections between the Aztecs and the Jews that he even frames Aztec idolatry in Jewish terms. What really forces me to believe that these Indians have Hebrew lineage is their strange persistence in not letting go of their idolatries and superstitions. Why did Israel end up going into Assyrian captivity? They had an idolatry problem. Okay? I mean, so does the Southern Kingdom as well, but more so with the Northern Kingdom. They had a god for everything, like literally everything, a god for the moon, a god for the sun, a god for a calendar, just any and everything. They had a different god for it. All right. They part and came back again to them, just like their ancestors. David says in Psalms 105, that's misquoted. It's talking about Psalms 106, and I'm going to bring it out again just for edification. All right. Psalms 106, that the Jews would first ask for God's clemency and forgiveness, yet as soon as they felt lost, they would go back to idolatry and sacrificing their sons and daughters to demons. You know, this is a misquote. It's not Psalms 105. All right. It's Psalms 106. And I brought it out earlier, but I'm going to bring it out one more time just for edification. So you can know what the hell they talking about. Come on. All right. This is Psalms 106 and 34 through 38. They did not destroy the nations concerning whom Yahweh commanded them, but were mingled among the heathen and learned their works. And they served their idols, which were a snare unto them. Yea, they sacrificed their sons and their daughters unto devils, and shed innocent blood, even the blood of their sons and of their daughters, whom they sacrificed unto the idols of Canaan, and the land was polluted with blood. So, you know, it doesn't, when it says Psalms 105, it's really supposed to say Psalms 106. That's a mistake on whoever wrote this. All right. But anyway, nonetheless, we're just going to keep going. So like y'all went down too far. All right. If the Aztecs ever descended from Jews, I can tell you one thing. It wasn't though my family. Mine arrived in Mexico City a little less than a century ago, and the first Jews to come to Latin America, as proven by recently found manuscripts by Louis Carbajal, came as crypto-Jews during the 16th century. Still there's some things that remain relevant about these foundational myths, specifically the content of Mexico, a country whose third largest source of income is generated by nationals living abroad, right? Other people, right? You know, the damn heathen. They are both stories of migration, violence, and ultimately emancipation. Okay? So that's the end of that. Yeah, that's the end of that. All right. So, yeah, I think I'm going to end there. But, yeah, man, y'all can, just look up Aztec and Mayan history, man. Y'all need to dig into this stuff. Why? Because it's the history of the Israelites. It's your history, man. All right? So when people try to scoff at you and tell you, Northern Kingdomers, Latinos and natives aren't Israelites, you need to start hitting them with cold hard facts, man. A lot of Israelites like to, use the white man's sources for validation, where it was a lot of white scholars, devil scholars, that studied these ancient civilizations, man, okay, that were in the Americas. And what conclusion did they come up with, man? That these people were descendants of Israelites, all right? So if you can believe the white man about everything else, also believe that when the white man says that the Native American and the Latin American are descendants of Israelites, you need to believe that too. You damn coon. All right? But with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out, man. Call Allah Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shah and Shalom.